In this video we'll see how to use some of the basic features of the Awesome Grid, like displaying data, column picker, default pop-up filtering. We can also use filters with remote search. So we can filter this column by a collection. Let's remove the filters, grouping, and group aggregates. So I'll add price, max, and also average. And the data is aggregated and paged at the server. All these features are here by default, so we don't really need to write any custom code for them. We only need to show the grid our model and define the columns, whether it's something simple like this, a nested one, composite, or a bit more complex like this one. Now let's start by adding an action to get the grid data from. I'm doing this in AweSqlDemo, which you can download, or you can do it in your own project. I'm using here hard-coded in-memory data, but at the end I'll show how it's done using Entity Framework in our AweSqlDemo. New grid model builder, pass the queryable and the grid params. The key is usually needed, and we return the JSON model. In the view we define the grid. We set the URL to point to our action and define the columns. In this case I'll use the strongly typed way of adding columns using lambdas. So let's also add a few nested properties. And let's build and try it. So our grid works, we can sort, we can group. Now let's add a few more columns. I'll add date, price, and for the collection property meals I'll use a select expression. And I'll add a composite column for the chef first name and the last name, and add a fixed height and main. Main extension will add a bunch of main features like reorderable, group aggregates, resizable columns, container. So we don't need all this, we just write main. Okay, now build and let's try it. So we have our column selector, we can group. Let's add some aggregates. For chef I'll add count. And let's filter by chef. I'll use the remote data collection filter. I'll also add a filter for meals. And let's clear the filters. And add a few more aggregates. Price, average, and date max. Good. Now a quick note on Entity Framework. For the nested and the collection properties we'll need to add the call include for our queryable. We'll also need to define the key. And instead of build we can call build async. And in program CS, as you can see in the installation instructions, we can call this method to make the grid model builder use the Entity Framework to array async and count async instead of the default ones. This was it. Thanks very much for watching and goodbye.